Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast are of the presenters and the presenters only and do not represent the views, opinions, or strategies of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Please like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
And welcome back, everybody. Episode 89. Well, we're going to cover a few things tonight. First, we do have some first-timer stories. I got 3 emails in, and I know Toasty's back with us, so he can give us his first-timer's experience as well to National Convention. And then we've got a pretty interesting topic after that. What does inaction cause? And we're kind of going to talk about what happens when you're just complacent. So on that note, how was your week, Toasty?
Well, I guess I'll start off right after convention. I had a first world problem of getting stuck in Vegas for 24 hours because of a misconnected flight. So I had to walk around, find a hotel to stay in for the night. Unfortunately, due to it not being the airline's fault that we were late, it was a medical emergency up front. They wouldn't do a hotel, but went ahead, 24 hours in Vegas, and then flew out the next day. They rebooked me for free. Came into, obviously, the Monday holiday. Spent some time with the kids, makeup day, to go ahead and make sure that we can get everything in, celebrate everything that we need to celebrate. Finished up count, or mini mail survey, sorry. I'm just so used to calling it count. And everything looked fine to me. Everything was about average. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing too crazy. Even afterwards, I know a lot of people said that have experienced in their own right that they had a big influx after mini mail survey was completed. Ours has been steady all the way through. I think they understand that it's not even the mini mail survey that really catches a lot of this. It's going to be automated for the most part. So still waiting. I got 2 more weeks until we find out what all of our routes are. Hopefully we get back up to 15K routes in my office so we can post those 2 PTF positions for the RCAs. Other than that, James, how was your week?
Well, lots of political flyers. Our state is a swing state, according to the national news networks. And so I was delivering 2, 3, 4 ads per candidate this past week, every single day. Minimum was 2 per candidate. And Friday was a bear. Friday felt like a day after a holiday in terms of volume for my route. And it was long, arduous, it was hot. We're stuck in a heat shield right now of high pressure, not allowing any rain or storms in. So it was sunny and hot. Been trying to see the auroras all week. They've been off and on in the area. And of course, every time they're on, I'm sleeping. I guess I shouldn't sleep. Then I'd probably be able to see them. But other than that, it's just pretty much getting ready for another week at work. Our mini mail survey numbers from the week came back, and there were a couple of days I was in the high triple digits for the mini mail survey with the sub running the route. Found out that our DPS came in messed up one day, didn't come in another day, so they had to count the smaller tray for another day. So it was going to be a good help on my 6%. If that means I go up an hour or 2, I'd love it. But trending wise, I'd probably go down to a J route at this point. Hopefully, I'm fingers crossed. My package numbers have been higher every week. I've been keeping track of that myself. So hopefully they'll go up when we find out in 2 weeks. But how about you, Bill?
Well, thank God for political mail, or, probably a third of my customers wouldn't get any mail. It's ridiculous, the amount of political mail we're getting in the EPS with those oversized postcards. filling the trays with. And I just love the way they stick together. It's just they're magnetically attracted to each other. It's what the friggin', But other than that, I mean, the mail flow itself is average. The parcels are up and down day to day. One day, I got 120. The next day, I've got 220. It doesn't make any sense. But with the mini mail survey all said and done, it's funny that our district manager is instructed by district headquarters to remeasure our walking distance to our parcels, our first hamper and the bullpen, because they don't believe the distances that we're traveling inside the building. So they were remeasuring them, and they got caught by a couple carriers who said, well, we're supposed to be doing this with you. And they said, well, we're just verifying the numbers. It's because they can't believe that we actually travel over 1,000 feet to hit two hampers inside a building. Well, the building's a couple freaking football fields, folks. I mean, give me a break. And on Saturday, I was off. It's my drop day, and they announced that the second trip for hampers is not being allowed. So if you needed a second hamper to handle your workload, you were not getting credit for that distance. District decided it's item 10 on the mini mail survey. That they weren't going to allow that anymore. Of course, that'll be grieved automatically tomorrow. Other than that, I mean, we really everybody's stuck at a 45K and above in my office, and that's without the footage being added to our routes. So I expect almost every route in our office to be overburdened after this mini mail survey. That's how much footage we walk every day. Like I said, I do 3.5 miles every day in that office. That's how big it is. Should I give you my bombshell now?
Go for it.
As of September 27th, 2024, William Bill May will no longer be working at the United States Postal Service.
Happy retirement.
Congratulations.
I decided that, after this last convention, I was questioning whether to do it or not. We made some changes on the national board. I don't think it's the message. I think it's the messenger. And I feel that it would be only appropriate to remove myself from consideration because of the fact that too many people have blinders on. And frankly, like I said, I could have retired 4 years ago, and I just don't see the effort whatsoever to go any further in the career because I'm so sick and tired of the union. I'm so sick and tired of management. I'm just, tired of fighting the fight. And it wouldn't be so bad if we could fight the fight and have a chance to win. But when your own union doesn't support you, and that's with, the past, people on the board and the district level people who are trying to screw you over for a buck here and there, I'm done. I've been doing this for 26 years, and it's time for somebody else to pick up the gauntlet and put forth a better face. So, like I said, this past convention, like I said, it wasn't the message. I believe it's the messenger, and I'm too controversial an individual to promote, our agenda. I mean, I'll be here to support you. I'll still be involved with my local and everything, but I've got my letter to give my supervisor tomorrow, and she's going to have fit. But guess what? I'm done. I'm stepping aside to let other people, step up. And hopefully, I'll continue to encourage people to step up locally, on the state level, and the national level. I do not, plan to abandon anybody. I'm still here for them. I just won't be going to work.
You'll be doing it from home instead of at the office.
Right. 100%.
Congratulations, Bill. Well deserved. You worked your butt off for that, and you deserve every little bit of it. And you can still be a delegate.
Yes, I can, and I want to be able to go to the convention so I can see my friends once a year on the union dime.
Well, we'll be happy to see you once a year ourselves.
Matter of fact, I might actually bring my wife this year so we can go to Epcot Center and hit the French bakery there because they have a Napoleon that is to kill for.
Mm.
I'm bringing the whole family to Orlando next year, so
There you go.
I've got Ruby, and little man will be celebrating his first birthday on Wednesday of the convention. Banquet, birthday party, I don't know. We'll see. And Sophia says she wants to come with us, and Eric said he wants to go as well.
And more breaking news, the podcast has created another local steward.
Yay!
Damn. Good for us.
Well, Bill, we wish you well in retirement. We really do. I first saw that coming, just not exactly when, but no, we do wish you well in retirement.
I mean, you have to realize that the situation we're in this new SDNC, and frankly, I'm concerned about every carrier out of Westchester traveling a major highway during the winter. It's just, we're 9 trucks down. We have 18 rural routes, and we're 9 trucks down every day. We're juggling, vehicles, and it's ridiculous. And to have the district management come in here and, oh, you can't be walking that much distance. But you don't even trust your own management on the distances that we walked with them right over our shoulder. Are you that's fucking greedy that you're trying to bleed us?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, the answer is yes, it is. The same way, like I said, with the second hamper situation, I don't use a second hamper. I use one to out the load, bring it back, and then reload it and go back out. But other people don't, because they don't have the area accessible to them to be able to work, unaided. So they need to be able to have a second hamper. And this is just, geez, I talked to the gentleman last night, Kristen, from North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
And he turned around and he did a Google Earth of the facility that I'm at.
Yeah.
And he only said 2 words. Oh, shit.
Sounds about right.
and he's going into an SDC. I said, well, is yours as big as ours? And he goes, oh, no, hell no. He says, like, we're like a pup to a Dalmatian, That's how big ours is. And, it's, to me, the grind is a bit much on, everybody. I mean, I've got people looking to get out of the union if the contract turns out to be a shitstorm. I've got people looking to get out of the post office because of where we're at and how we're treated. I mean, they have no respect whatsoever for their employees. And it's, it's disheartening, and I've been fighting it for years and years and years. And then, to get moved up to this new SDC, now you have a whole brand new group of ignoramuses that you got to fight. And it's like, okay, I don't need this. But like I said, I'll still be here to support, the podcast, my local and my state and everything, and, 5 years from now, you won't see me at a national convention. Like I said, it's time for other people to step up. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work to encourage people to get involved, step up, stay in the union, and fight it from the inside, because it's the only place you can fight it.
That's very true. Very, very true. And we respect that decision totally. All right. So my week, now that we got that bombshell from Bill, my week was, I worked Monday through Friday. And it wasn't too bad. It was heavy all week. Like James said, we are in a swing state, so lots of political. Lots and lots of political. If I didn't have political, I don't think I'd have even a quarter of the DPS that I had this week. So Thursday, all of our DPS came in non-linear. So I ended up with 15 inches of mail that had to be cased. That was fun. With a box holder on top of it. So Thursday was my day of never-ending ick, for the most part. I only had 80 packages, but mail was horrible. So, but other than that, my week wasn't too bad. Ruby went back to work Saturday, so I got to babysit the grandbaby for a few hours Saturday. And for a couple hours today, he went on a road trip with me to take Sophia back to her dad. So, been spending time with the baby when I haven't been working and getting stuff done. And next Sunday might be a little interesting because I finally was able to get the upgraded computer components that I wanted ordered, and they will be in this week, and we'll be rocking and rolling next Sunday on all new equipment, so including sound effects and whatever have you that I feel like playing with. It'll be fun. But other than that, not a whole lot going on my end. Just, getting those baby snuggles in where I can. So we are going to start off with, I got 3 emails from 3 of our listeners on their first time experience at National Convention. I'm going to read them in the order that we received them. I'm not going to edit them other than leaving out names and locations. That's it. So if they're slinging mud at somebody, they're slinging mud. If they're, say, happy and joy, it's happy, joy. Unedited, except for names and locations. So, for our first one, my first national convention. I understand if this is not used, as I'll say what I saw and heard. It's not all positive for the podcast crew. Hopefully it'll help in the future. We respect that 100%. Said, hey all, first off, I've been to at least 15 state conventions, multiple boosters, and most district meetings. My state convention is well represented, yet currently no voting needed to be a state delegate. Self-nomination gets you in. The national convention is very well organized. I was notified late as a paid alternate delegate. Deadline for the hotel's group rate had passed, and we ended up at an Airbnb, a 9-minute walk to the Peppermill for $80 a night. Hey, that's not a bad deal. We did not know our way around the hotel, and the hotel staff gave misleading directions too. We ended up going to the back door of the registration room. We were told to go around the front, which was closer to the stairs escalators that we were directed away from by hotel staff. A long hallway down and back, and we found it. During convention, you have to check in with your state, morning, after lunch, and at caucus. If you're not there, you're not getting paid. Everything was very similar to state, with the exceptions of hearing DeJoy speak. Nothing real informative with his speech either. I wonder why we endure that year after year, likely for political reasons. He's our employer, and we are in negotiations. Caucus night was new for me, and not done in state. They don't do it at their state. We had a room to ourselves, and some states shared a room. I think there were 11 rooms total, and each candidate would visit and talk for 15 minutes. We had 15 or 16 candidates, so that's about 4+ hours added to our day. Every candidate talked about harassment issues, hiring and retention. Bill May was asked if he had the support of his state board, and his response was, sure, which translates to maybe 1 or 2 members may have supported him. The person asking seemed to already know the answer. It's why they asked. I wish he had reminded the group what Don Maston had said after the first mini-mail survey. Quotations, carriers have had it too good for too long. To me, that was Don's worst statement to make. Kristen was asked about decertification from her steward role and the podcast. She did okay with owning up to the podcast. Would have liked to hear more of why she went the direction she did. I know it was to help more people, especially with navigating wrecks. Jake was asked about his involvement with the podcast, and he acted like he wasn't involved and wasn't ready for the subsequent questioning regarding it. I'm sure he was trying to protect himself while awaiting steward certification. James was the only candidate that didn't talk with the group. He read for the 15 minutes. He needed to maybe have bullet points or engage more with the people there. He read word for word what he had prepared. Overall, the podcast members, though very knowledgeable, lack the experience and maturity that is needed. They'll get there in time. They'll get there in time. There are many members to the podcast and Facebook group. However, just because we're members doesn't mean we wouldn't vote for the best candidate. Getting through the almost 400 resolutions seemed like a daunting task, but we got through it well. Mainly because we continued working while votes for candidates were being counted. Each round of voting took about 50 minutes, with 8 people going for one position and the bottom 2 dropping out after each round. This took time. That time was widely used to continue with the resolutions. If you decide to go to state or national convention, realize that there is a lot of work involved and some very long hours. Plan a day or two after convention to actually relax and enjoy what the area has to offer. All right, that was number 1. And now on to number 2. Hey guys! First, I want to say that it was awesome hanging out with all you guys. Y'all are the best. I missed you guys already, especially my roomies. We had so much fun, and I can't wait until we can hang out again. For the experience, overall, I had a lot of fun meeting people from all over the country and making some new friends. Since I was an alternate delegate, I thought the first couple days I would have more free time to take in the area and maybe do some gambling. That was not the case. I felt like it was a non-stop thing to do all week, so needless to say, I was exhausted by the end of the week. The night I got home, I slept 14 hours straight, and I never sleep that long. I've been to my state's convention, so I had an idea on procedures, so the actual process of the convention, once business started, wasn't too big of a surprise. It was definitely a much bigger scale. There was definitely some shenanigans going on leading up to nominations, which I thought was catty and unnecessary. But the people that I talked to that have been going to national for a long time seemed like they heard all the bad about the nominees from the podcast and had their minds made up. After caucus night, those same people seemed to have different opinion, but they were nervous that they didn't have the experience of having state board positions and such. But they were understanding about the need for change. My state was very welcoming to me personally and appreciated the fact I paid my own way to go all the way out there. I had the opportunity to actually have a sit-down conversation with my ADR and learned so much. I don't think I would really have that opportunity back at home with all the craziness that goes along with being a local steward and just life in general. I also got to have conversations with my recently retired ADR and some of my state board members. I went out there with the intention of networking with people that could help me move up in the union on the steward side of things, and I feel like I accomplished that. I got some very sound and clear advice on the steps I need to take to get where I want to go. I was surprised at the end of everything. My state president made it a point to come up to me and tell me he appreciated me coming and how he is excited about new people getting involved because, in his words, we're not going to be around forever. That told me that he is not afraid for the new generation to take over. So that made me very proud of my state, especially considering what I heard about things other people were being told from their states. All that being said, I could tell that there was a good old boys club, but the way I look at it is that they had to start somewhere. Whenever they were coming up, they were the change too, and the people before them didn't want to vote them in. The more I process all of it, it does make sense to me. The old-timers don't want to vote people in that they don't know, and it takes time to build that trust. So yes, technically you don't have to work up the ranks, but I understand that's how you build the trust of the body. I respect the hell out of the people that ran for any position because I don't think I could put myself out there like that. I just hope that the body holds the board more accountable, since from what I was hearing, they liked a lot of the ideas that the candidates from the podcast had. They just didn't like the fact that non-dues paying members had access to certain information. So buckle up, everybody. This is just the beginning. I can't wait until next year. Much love to you guys, and keep on keeping on. P.S. Let's not forget that a non-binding resolution was passed saying the union should have a podcast. I still think that's hilarious. And I got one more. The biggest irony was the union president calling people scabs one day and the next day telling us not to call each other names. The first timer meeting was really good, and I appreciated getting the cheat sheet for Robert's Rules of Order. I enjoyed getting to hang out with all my United We Scan podcast listeners. I know that I'm going to the next convention and that during my state convention I'll pay more attention to resolutions that pass at state. This year was also my first time at state. And take notes so that when at national people have questions about a resolution and the maker is not there, I can speak on it in their behalf. I would also like to say that the members of my state delegation were extremely helpful in answering any and all questions I had during the proceedings, even going as far as to offer to suspend the rules so that I could speak as I was a non-delegate. As of right now, I have 10 resolutions I'm working on for next year. Continue to work and be the change you want to see. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it all. And hey, I take all criticism constructively, so... Like I said, we wanted to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny, everything. And we appreciate the three of you that submitted those in. Jake, do you want to give us a little highlight of what it was like for you as a first-timer?
Sure, absolutely. So it was set up very much like state convention. So if you go to state convention, it's going to be the same type of format. First day, they're going to have all the pomp and circumstance, the introductions, the laying out of the rules, the sponsors, so like the insurance companies, CVS, all those, type of deals to go ahead and like, hey, here's for retirement, here's for OWCP, here's all of these things. And then the next day is when you start getting into, the nominations, you start getting into the constitution changes. They try to get you as much information as possible before, having to vote on those things. So they'll usually give you the printouts the day before, so that way, we have meetings set up with everyone. I was, hanging out with Kristen, and another, little group that we were going over those resolutions. We were looking at, every single one, saying, hey, I'll let the gavel hit on this one. This one, oh, I definitely disagree with this one. We need to object this one. Going through that whole list. It's a lot of work. It is a ton of work. It's not just, we're going to go hang out and, play in the casino, or next year is in Florida, go half day Disney World and then half day there. No, you're working from 8:30 in the morning when the gavel hits to until we're done with business at 5-6 o'clock, and then you got banquet. You've got the seminars if you want to try to make those, especially for those getting close to retirement. And especially now that we're about to have those changes going from federal employee benefit plan to postal employee benefit plan, it's going to be a little bit of a change. So if you want more information, you can go to those things. They have those, set up for convention. So that way you can get that information. We also participated in the rally on, what was it, Monday night? Or
Yes.
Tuesday night?
Monday night.
Monday night. Okay. On Monday night, for the Protect Our Letter Carriers Act. I've tried getting a hold of my representative, and I have not received anything back, unfortunately. So I haven't even got any email. I've called. They said that, okay, we'll go ahead and get your information, and he'll send you a letter back, or some information back, and nothing yet. So not sure what's going on there. But just trying to get that information out there, and having that news crew that was there, everyone coming out together, not only rural letter carriers, but also the local mail handlers, clerks, and city carriers that were there too, in support as well. They were actually able to, change the vote of one of the Nevada representatives. So it was nice to see that. Nice to see that, we can get change, but we got to get loud. We got to be proud, and we got to go ahead and start making some moves. But other than that, as far as convention goes, I was very pleased with it, meeting a lot of new people, going through that caucus night. I do apologize to the one state that I went ahead and denied. After that, I was like, it's not going to be worth it to keep denying or whatnot. I just owned it up, and from there on out, and told them it was basically about my experience, which I've been sharing on here when it comes to RRO, when it comes to the mini mill survey, when it comes to whatever's going on in my district, the new flavor of the week that they're wanting to enforce. So I went ahead and just, owned it on from there on out. But got a lot of great feedback from, everyone saying like, hey, we do like you, we like your ideas, but that experience is definitely something that, everyone wants to see. Everyone wants to see that you've had experience administratively, handling the paperwork, handling grievances. It takes years and years to build up a repertoire of cases that you've been able to fight, so that way when somebody's job is on the line, you have all that information in your back pocket already because you've been doing it for years. So I understand that completely, and I'll be back. I want to try to go ahead and get all that experience that they're wanting to see, and that is something that is important, absolutely. But one of the things that we can also rely on is, the help of our fellow NROs, those that are been there for years and been doing it for a while. Leaning on them, getting the information from them, and being able to adapt it into your sort of style as well. So I know for sure I'll be back next year. I'm going to try to bring the whole family as well to Orlando if we can. Unfortunately, in Texas, we do start school kind of early, usually the first week of August. So see how it works out with school. If there's a way we can go ahead and do a week of having them there and having them do the juniors thing. If not, maybe grandma and grandpa will help us out. So, but other than that, I had a great time.
Good to hear.
And Toasty's right in regards to building your repertoire, state associations and everything. Unfortunately, I've built my repertoire outside the post office, and I guess that doesn't count for much. But the problem with the people who have worked their way up is they've worked their way up through political connections and not through meaningful actions on their own parts. And that's I think that's our biggest gripe, is the fact that you've gone through all this, you've worked your way up the ladder, you're at the top of your career, your pinnacle. And what have you accomplished for us? What have you markedly been able to point out as your the epitome of your service to the craft? And that's the problem. You worked your way through the whole system, and we still got nothing for all that experience. And that's that's the brunt of it, is that you've got this experience, you've done nothing for us. And in case of our current president, we turned around and we bid on a route 320 miles away so we can bump our high threes from the post office. We've taken our family to vacation in Hawaii on miles paid by the union. And the individual purchases at these homes that we've seen over the years is just, it's egregious. That you're not doing this for the craft, you're not doing this for the carriers. This is all self-entitlement. And that's the problem with working your way up there, that you get so comfortable that you forget why you're there.
Yeah.
You talk about people needing experience, needing these skills, needing this, needing that. The thing about it is, the skills that are needed for those positions can be trained in other businesses. It doesn't have to come through the post office. Just like they're hiring supervisors off the street that have no clue what's going on in the postal service and are just willing to follow the direction of the manager that's above them. The thing about it is, not everybody can deliver mail. We see it every day on the street. Subs come in, can't handle it, quit, or some of them get fired. The stress of this job is a lot higher than any other job out there in society. Not only do we have the risk of management coming down on us for small, insignificant things, as was talked about earlier in this episode, we have people on the street literally pointing guns at us just to steal a key that we carry with us in some instances. Some people don't carry them, but they're robbing us in broad daylight on the street. Now, I understand that you have to be able to negotiate, you have to be able to communicate, you have to be able to do specific things. But I would love to see anybody up there on the national board that has been in that office for multiple years come down here and do our job for a week. I'd love to see them come do it my last week that I just had with all the political flyers, see how they handle it. Because yes, they are rural carriers, but I guarantee you Mr. Maston has not touched mail in over a decade. Doesn't know how to use a scanner like a carrier does on the street. He'll be fumbling through all the little menus and things like that to find the thing he's looking for. The thing about it is, if you do it the same way every time and expect different results, what is that?
Insanity.
All right, Jay.
Answer?
Yes, we got it. All right, so we're going to move on to the second portion of tonight's episode. What does inaction cause? Go ahead, James.
So
I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Let me preface this first. So there are multiple different ways you can have inaction. You can have inaction on carriers, working for the union, getting the union participation and stuff like that. You can have inaction with the national leadership. You can have inaction by getting rid of the union, which is the worst thing you could ever do. Or just straight on, in that term, complacency. Oh, we're complacent with what's going on because we're afraid that if we do something different, it'll be catastrophic. We're afraid to make that change. We're afraid to make a decision at the risk of making things better because we're afraid that it may make things worse. So we're going to start this off. Complacency of national leadership. We're going to start off with a bang on this one. And I'm going to start with you, Bill. I want you to tell me the dangers of complacency of our national leadership.
Oh, God. You know, then this goes back to working your way up through the system, the good old boys club and everything else. It's funny because when I brought up the fact that Don's route is, 320 miles away, somebody came back and said to me, so, well, he felt sorry for his sub, near his home because, he was keeping him from becoming a career carrier. So that's why he bid on a route 320 miles away. And I said, well, that's magnanimous of him. I said, but if you believe that bullshit, I got some oceanfront property in Kansas for you. He did it for the high threes, as well as several DRs that I know of did bid on routes that were overburdened because they didn't anticipate going back to them. And Don also said that it wasn't fair, that he would be on the national board for years to come. Well, how do you know that? How do you forecast that you're going to be on the national board for years unless there is a system in place to just walk you up the chairs until you get to the highest position? And the complacency in this situation is that, oh, this is how you pay your dues. No, you pay your dues by working your ass off for the craft. And the complacency of, whether it's our NSS, our state officers, the retirees, whoever, and whatever, your title is, that this is the way it works. That complacency is what's holding us back. There are a ton of people out there with great ideas. There are people out there with a shitload of experience outside the post office as well as inside the post office that deserve the opportunity. But the complacency of those individuals is that why fight the tide? You can't win. And, this election, even though we did have changes, still shows that it's in place. You can't fight the good old boys club. And the complacency makes people just, wave their hands and surrender and say, we'll just go with the flow. We're sheep. Just tell us where to go. And that type of complacency is abound in the past 15 years of our union at the national level, because it has been. You've watched everybody from Jeanette, Ronnie, and Don just move up a seat every 3-4 years. Why? Because that's what's expected. That's what they anticipate. And it's hard for me to fathom that, we get up there and, like the one individual said, I don't see how you stand up in front of 1,200 people. Well, you care enough about the craft, it's easy to get up there and speak your mind and speak your heart. But the problem of it is that there's much more place in individuals through the delegates, at the national convention. It just, they don't want to, rock the boat. They don't want to, tilt the cart, whatever you want to call it. And they're just happy to go along with status quo. Status quo doesn't help the craft, and it never will. No, I'm not coming back next year. As far as the national board, the complacency is, basically on the delegates. And, like I said, the national board expects to be able to promote themselves right up the ladder. And that's got to change. And I think we've made a change this year.
Kristen, your thoughts?
I have thoughts. I do.
Bill took a lot of them.
Yes, he did, and no, I think it's not necessarily inaction, but it's perceived as inaction when we don't see the action. We read the words, we hear the words, but we're not seeing the action. And I think that also has a part of some leaning towards the inaction of things as well. Because honestly, we don't see the action. We don't hear about the actual action. We hear everything around it, but the actual action. But yeah, that's really all I have off the top of my head without really thinking, and Bill covered quite a bit of it.
Yeah, anything to add, Jake?
And
Go ahead, Bill.
I mean, basically,
let me just
exactly
throw it in, like Kristen said, there, it's the inaction, because we don't see anything, we don't hear anything, we're not given any information about the contract. We're not given, come on, folks. It's been 12 years since the inception of Rex, and we still don't have transparency. That's the inaction. We're not seeing anything on our behalf.
We still have
Yeah.
We still have offices where carriers haven't mapped since the first initial mapping, and they just get one excuse after another. And grievances aren't going anywhere when they are filed. That's the inaction we're talking about.
Right. All right,
And
back to
also
you, Toasty.
Also, the lack of communication. Like, I've been on here, letting y'all know, hey, during the optimization, it doesn't recognize vacant addresses. We should be, our board should be raising the bell saying, hey, just so you know, whenever you go through optimization, here's what to look for. Make sure that your vacant boxes are in the correct order. Make sure, this and that your CBUs haven't been ungrouped. They should be the ones shouting from the rooftops, like, hey, here's what we're seeing. Even though the post office says it's just a pilot program, this is what's happening to a few individuals. We're working, talking with them about, fixing this. But for right now, make sure you look for this. We need that communication because it's going to affect you. It's going to affect the RCAs who try to move into these new routes, who may not know how to do their edit book. So here, you look at your edit book. Here's how to do this. Here's, some basic training on your edit book. Here's some basic training on what to look for when it comes to your 4241M and your A. Sure, they have the cheat sheet, but they don't go into detail about it. A lot of people don't understand this 99-page guide, as well as somebody who's been in programming before, or somebody who's done, some other type of administrative or programming type of deal to say, hey, here's why, it may look like it's only half a second for a stop sign, but it's actually 3 seconds per stop sign. Here's why. But there's not that communication. We need that. We need that transparency. We need to be educated to be empowered. We need crystal clear communication to restore the hope that, has caused a lot of people to leave the union or to pull their dues or to retire early. We need to recruit those 1,000 members that we lost back.
Very, very good points, guys. I agree with each and every one of them. And you're right. It's the biggest problem we have is actually true complacency from what we've seen from the national board. And as was said in the first timer email, statements like rural carriers have had it too good for too long. Accepting 240 people pulling their dues from a 4-state area and calling them scabs is complacency. You're complacent with people pulling their dues from the union. This is all straight, just the president, complacent with the things as they are going. Instead of stepping up, finding out why they're leaving the union, asking the tough questions, figuring out how we can make it better to keep more people in dues paying status, they're turning around and calling them names. And like the email said, then later on at National telling people not to call people names after they did it themselves. Sort of a do as I say, not as I do type of thing. I think that right now we are on a precipice with the complacency that we had on the national board with two people in the top positions of the steward system, in the Director of Labor Relations and Director of Steward Operations, who are men of action, men who reply at any time carriers contact them, men who actually care about this craft. And we have two new NROs who, from the people I've spoken to about them and worked with them, have said they are also people of action. So I am hoping with 4 people of action now on the national board, as well as several others still on there that are men of action, but were silenced by the number of people that were in action, that we actually have a chance for this board to actually start doing things for this craft. Now, if you want to talk about action, you have to talk about the biggest voice out there, the voice that gets action to happen. So the next question to each member of this panel is, what happens when there is complacency amongst the craft membership, whether it be the dues paying ones, the non-dues paying ones, or the people who are pulling their dues because they feel the complacency and inaction from the national board is not worth the money that they pay into it? Do you think there is a correlation to complacency of the craft to people pulling their dues or people not willing to pay their dues? We'll start with you, Kristen.
I think there is. I think that can stem down not necessarily from inaction of national board, but that could be experiences that these craft members have had with NSS or even their local. If you file grievances and they're settled for language and it doesn't fix it, and you file another grievance and it doesn't fix it, at that point you've lost faith in the union. And it does happen, unfortunately. There are some really, really good people in our NSS. There are. And there are some exceptional local stewards. But there's always some in the bunch that are not the greatest. And unfortunately, I think when a lot of that comes down, and it comes down on the workroom floor too, as even those that are complacent in the office and don't want to ruffle any feathers because they don't want retaliation, because they don't want to file a grievance, even though they have a clear grievance that is extremely winnable and could make change even in the office. They don't want to ruffle any feathers and they don't want any retaliation, so they're going to be complacent and not do anything. I've seen that from my own coworkers. I've heard about it from many places. It's sad and disheartening. It really is. And it's the membership has the voice. Every single member has a voice within the union. We are the voice of the union. And if we are being complacent, then nothing's ever going to get better. And that includes right down to in your own office. If you're not filing a grievance, or at least having that step one conversation with management to hash it out prior to filing a grievance, if you're not willing to step up for yourself, then that's inaction. I mean, I understand a lot of people can't financially go to national convention, can't financially. I understand that. I mean, it is financially difficult. I've paid my own way, 3 out of the 5 times I was a non-paid alternate delegate. And I have to pay everything up front anyways, even as a paid alternate. So yeah, it is financially tough to do, and I understand that. And I understand when you have kids in school and all that stuff, and if you're a single parent, it's even more difficult. I get that. But that's not the only way to be active. I mean, there are local meetings. And what I try to tell people when it comes to every member has a voice. Even if you are unable to go to a local meeting or submit a resolution or go to a state meeting, or I understand there are circumstances of why somebody would not be able to make it. I totally get that. But the smallest thing that you can do to be active and to have a voice is vote on your delegate ballot for national and vote on a ratification ballot. The 2 simplest things.
Toasty?
I'm going to kind of switch this up to go towards the state. As far as like not necessarily state convention, but it is a lot easier right now to look up exactly what our national board's duties and responsibilities are. You can go to the website, go to the Constitution, and it lists it out right there. For me, it was a lot harder to find that for my state, because we just started getting a website going, and it's still a little bit difficult to navigate. Not anyone's fault, that we're trying to play catch up, but that's not something that, they're getting a lot of support from when it comes, from national, like national could sponsor, state, websites if they wanted to, but obviously they would have to work that out, and that would have to be another constitution change. But there's not a lot of information on what your state does. Some states do have a lot of information out there. I'll give them that. There's a lot of, other websites that are very well organized, very well put together, but there's not a lot of people that understand, when you walk in the door at the post office and get recruited, that, like, hey, you start at your local meeting. From there, you get, whenever there's state convention, you get nominated to be a delegate to state convention. If you want to put in resolutions, if you want to, make changes here, we also have a state president, vice president, trustees. Some do have executive committeemen, type of deal. There's not a lot of information, and that's something that we really need to start educating the entire craft about. So that way they can know, like, hey, this is where the changes are made. Like my former local president didn't know, or didn't seem like she knew, how to change the board. Like, if you're upset with the board, you don't like what's going on, you don't like that, the contract that's coming out, all of these things, you need to be a delegate to be able to, do all of this, or you need to vote on the delegates that will vote for the change that you want. So we need to educate everyone, let them know, hey, as soon as that ballot comes out, make sure that you're researching who you want to represent you. Don't just vote for the names that you recognize. Vote for the people that are open, that are communicate with you, that are open and honest. And, hey, maybe even if you disagree on certain points, at least they'll listen to you. So that is definitely something that we need to do, is make sure that we get involvement in the state, involvement in your local, and hopefully your local meetings aren't like mine, where they just, dissolve into a cry fest about, this, that, about this person, that person, this is going on. And, we can barely get the information out of our DR and our trustee about what's coming down the pipe. So I think we need more organization. I think we definitely need to, educate and let people know, like, hey, this is the way it needs to be. This is the way to get involved. So that way we can get rid of that complacency.
Bill, your turn.
Well, complacency really starts with the people who aren't in the union because they've given up. For one reason or the other, they don't see value in paying dues, and they get the same type of representation from the steward, or they should, that a dues paying member gets. A lot of dues paying members are complacent because they've seen where you're fighting local management, district management, and it's an uphill battle. We're going through that right now with our mini mail survey, trying to verify distances traveled in this SDNC, and it's a constant battle. Like somebody said, yeah, you've gone into a new place and now you have a new set of opponents to battle, and you've already been battling for 26 years, and now they just throw more enemies at you per se, a fresh set of troops to fight you, and it does get disheartening. And like I said, I could have retired 4 years ago, but this podcast and other circumstances that's reinvigorated me, and um, I'm genuinely concerned about my fellow carriers in my office, even the ones I don't like, because I see where this is going, and if somebody doesn't step up for them, even though they're dues paying members, they're complacent because of the fact that they don't see the value of challenging or fighting for what they're entitled to. You got to remember that the Rex program, basically removed the ECS from our system in regards to compensation, and we were finally going to get paid for what we do, everything that we do. Yet in the past 2 years, they've nickeled and dimed us and made changes to that compensation. Whether it's something as simple as the second hamper, whether it's the PARS labels that you only get during the mini mail survey now, whether it's a WSH versus a WSS, they've been constantly just picking us apart over monetary, issues. And why fight it? I can't win. They do what they want to do, and that's the problem. Is that people they just see the hopelessness of trying to fight the system. But when you stop fighting the system, that's when the system wins, and that's why you need United We Scan. This is why you need Rural InfoNet, because of the fact that you have a voice. You can fight. You can go through your local area, your state, your national. You can go through your NSS system. And yes, we have plenty of good stewards, local stewards out there, ADRs and DRs. But on the other hand, just like management, we have bad representation. We have people who are AKA in bed with management as stewards, and they agree with management 99% of the time. Oh yeah, they can do that. Oh, because it's easier for them to get along, to go along to get along, than it is for them to sit there and fight, and then they turn around and get preferential treatment. If anybody says that doesn't happen, well, you're just fooling yourself. The problem of it is that I think that we've been beaten down as a craft so much that people they've gotten hopeless in regards to seeing any change. But as soon as you accept that reality, you've lost. So don't ever accept it. Fight back every damn step of the way. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for others. Get involved. Don't take this laying down. And especially when you're paying your dues, you have that voice. So exercise that right.
Exactly. The biggest complacency issue that we have across the board in the craft alone is accepting what management says as the truth. And management is less trained than you are, less knowledgeable in the stuff than you are. They're just reading emails sent to them by their district manager. The district manager is just reading emails sent to them by the regional manager. The regional manager is reading emails sent to him by national. It's the old telegraph game. Management has been ahead at the national level of our union for years. Everything that has been passed down in MOUs has been something management got something for. Management would not sign an MOU unless there was a benefit to them signing it. Even the joint statements, the benefit to management signing those joint statements was getting Congress to back off of them all the way back then. You have to think about everything that comes down in an agreement with management is going to be something that management has a benefit from. And the complacency at our level is believing in management. Now, I understand I have a unicorn in my office with the postmaster, but even I don't believe the things that are said if it comes from her manager. Management would rather climb a tree to lie than stand on the ground to tell the truth. Because if it protects their position, they're going to do it. So if their district manager's telling them that they have to remeasure the distances because they're too high of numbers, they're going to go and measure those distances so they don't get yelled at by their district manager. If it's something that needs to be done in that office to keep them off a list from their district manager, they're going to do that. And if you are complacent with what they're doing and you don't understand that it's against the contract, it's against the postal manuals, it's against the ELM, or it's against the M38, which is management of rural carriers, then you're going to be doing things that are wrong. You got to make sure to not be complacent with the way things are. Always look to improve yourself. And if you are not a dues-paying member in this union, you should be one. And I'm not saying that just to boost the numbers of the union. I'm saying that because that is the ultimate information system. Getting it up from the union website, which is where everybody on this podcast gets their information about the union, as well as other sources, is the first line of defense from being complacent. Knowing the 99-page guide, knowing the national agreement, knowing the PO 603, the M38, everything keeps you from being complacent. You don't have to learn it all in one day. It took me weeks to read each one of those because I wanted to read as much as I could and try to retain as much as I could. I only have about an 80% retention rate on what I read. So I sometimes get things wrong. But people correct me on that. And when I am corrected or I look it up, then I have the actual answer. But you have to not be complacent that things are just going to continue to go the way they are, just hunky-dory, just fine. You've got to be always learning. All right. The last challenge I have for anybody listening to this that is a non-dues paying member. If you feel that we can make a difference together, learning this stuff, understanding this stuff, working with us, helping everybody in the craft, and you want to become a dues paying member, feel free to let them know one of us sent you. Feel free to let anybody that's your friend that talked to you about this be the one that tell the union, hey, this person told me to join the union. Because they need to know that whoever is in the union is bringing people in. Don't just let it be whoever they choose. Choose the person yourself. And as somebody just said in the chat, know the rules of the game if you are going to play. Would you play a game where the stakes are your livelihood without knowing the rules? You are if you don't learn this stuff. Very good statement. Very good statement.
And we will be for future episodes going back to the basics and to the roots of what this podcast initially was supposed to be starting 2 years ago. We are going to start going over some of the important stuff. I mean, there's highlights in the PO 603, which is quite outdated anymore, but there's things that we will be highlighting and going over again. Rex, I know, is another thing that we'll definitely update the scans and how they apply to daily use on the route and whatnot. We're gonna take it back to the roots and start doing a lot more educational stuff, aren't we, guys?
There is a lot of stuff to go over, a lot of stuff that people need to know. We're still going to be taking your questions. I'm still going to be out there helping carriers, available to carriers, because that is the ultimate thing that any member of this craft can do, is help pull up another craft member.
Yeah, we'll start going over stuff again, even if it's something we've covered in a previous episode. We'll update and go over it again. It's not gonna hurt, especially the fact that I'll have new toys to play with starting next week. So it'll be better.
Whatever Mama Bear says, Mama Bear says, we follow.
Damn right. No. All right, guys. Are we gonna wind this down now for tonight?
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right. Toasty, your final thoughts for this evening.
My final thoughts, and I'll go ahead and announce it to everyone. It'll be a final episode. This is going to be a sign-off episode for me. I personally want to go in a different direction. For me, one of the big things that I was campaigning on when it came to the caucuses and running for executive committeeman was trying to reach out to this younger generation, especially this generation that's on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and doing that video format. Trying to get that educational, get people involved, try to bring in that excitement that we're seeing around, all these other unions that are getting all these big, these big contracts and everything like that. And we're seeing a lot of hype around it. And I don't feel that we're getting that hype from any other source. So I'm one of those that was raised on, if you want something done right, you do it yourself. Step up, be the change that you want to see, look in the mirror and be that change. So I will be stepping away from the podcast. I'll still be in the Discord. I'll still be chatting it up, still in 100% support. But I do want to focus a lot more of my energy and my time into doing that video format, educational type of stuff and informational shorts, basically. So I love you all. Thank you all for the support. I'll still be hanging around. And stay safe out there, guys.
James?
Well, Toasty, we'll miss your voice on here. Good luck in your attempts to educate the masses in different media formats. We will appreciate the extra media output to help the craft overall. We talked about the first timers going to the union convention, but I think the even more important people that go to these events are the second timers. People who went the first time and did not get discouraged and came back a second time. They are the most important people to me. And I understand your first time participating is the most important time overall because you're starting your journey with it. But coming back and continuing it is even more important. And I know I talked to a couple first timers who said they won't be back because of what happened on the floor. And I hate to see that. But that is complacency on the convention floor. Complacent with the way things are and not bringing in new people and scaring them away with the way you act. We cannot afford to be complacent anymore. We cannot afford to let things lie. Now I'm challenging every single steward, ADR, DR, regional rep, our new director of steward operations, our new director of labor relations, and the NROs. Complacency is over. Your inaction will be documented. We will know. It's time to step up and fight for this craft because you have new leadership over you. Take their lead. They are people of action. You should be people of action. Step up, take care of this craft, and let's show management that we are no longer complacent to being the doormats they walk on. And for the carriers on the floor, it's time to step up. If there's a violation, you need to grieve it. You need to drown management in paperwork if they're violating anything like the national agreement, the contract, or any of that. Grieve it. Bury them in paperwork. Because that is the only way to affect change. If you're not a dues-paying member, become one. We're coming up on a contract ratification when they come up with a tentative agreement. You want to be in to be able to vote on that, to decide the future of this craft for the next 4 years. Get involved. Go to your local meetings. Do not settle for complacency. It's time to stand up and show everybody we're all in this together. Bill?
Well said there, James. I guess the one significant point that I can illustrate in regards to complacency is that if we were as complacent as a craft as we are at a local level, we would not have had such a dramatic change on the national board for the Director of Labor Relations and the Director of Steward Operations. The fact of the matter is that John Adams massacred Bridget during the election. He had a positive message. He's relatable. He calls you back on Sundays. He's got plausibility. He's a nice person. And the thing of it is that, people who were at the national convention were not complacent to the rhetoric from the two previous board members. And they voted them out because they saw the need for change. Now, okay, we didn't win our positions, but guess what? We did help affect that change. You have 2 new NROs also. That's what complacency doesn't take into consideration. You can make the change, but you have to be involved. You have to get involved. At the local level, you have to stand up for yourself. You have to stand up for others. Get involved with your local chapters, your state, your boosters, whatever. But if you're not involved, you have no voice. Even if you're a dues-paying member, if you don't exercise that right, nobody hears you. So get out there, be the spokesperson, basically become a target for your local office, for the carrier working next to you, for the people in your local. I mean, folks, if you don't stand up for yourselves, they're just going to walk all over you. And they're counting on that. They're counting on you just, kowtowing to their whims and their bullshit. But the fact of the matter is, a united voice, a united membership is so strong. We replaced 4 members on the national board. Next year, let's replace a couple more, at least 3. So if you want to affect change, guess what? You have to be involved. So signing off for tonight, I almost regret being the nice Bill this year. And, I tried to put out a positive message in regards to concern for the carriers. Like I said, it may not be the message, it may be the messenger, and that's why I'm stepping away. And I'll be retiring September 27th. But I'll still be involved with the podcast. And actually, I'll probably be more involved with our local and everything because I'll have more time. But I look forward to being, part of this podcast, the education of our craft, and the promotion of our union. Not here to, we were accused of being union busters. Far from it. We believe a strong union is the only way to move forward. And to be strong, we need you to be involved. Everybody, we got a new week coming up. Safe, work effectively, professionally, diligently, and make sure that you are the last delivery of the day because you're the most important delivery of the day. Bless you all.
Thank you, guys. I know, Toasty, we will miss you on the air, but I know you and I have talked, we talked a little bit at National about the future anyways, so we're good there. I'll miss you on the mic, but it's okay. And Bill, happy retirement. We'll look forward to the retirement stories coming up in the future. And guys, it's going to be a warm one again this week for many, and myself included. So remember to stay hydrated. Stay safe out there, folks. And we'll be back next week. Take care.
Well, I got a bombshell I'm going to drop on y'all tonight, but we'll wait till the show starts.